Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Psychology with Dipali, the best destination for detailed explanations of various concepts in psychology. So, today we will be continuing with Grade 12, Chapter 1, Variations in Psychological Attributes. And today we'll be learning about three psychometric theories of intelligence. So, the topics we will cover today are the two-factor theory of intelligence by Charles Spearman, the theory of primary mental abilities by Louis Thurstone, and the hierarchical model of intelligence by Arthur Jensen. So, as usual, we start with the interesting question of the day. There was a person who began his career as an officer in the British Army, serving for 15 years before pursuing his interest in psychology. He is considered a pioneer in factor analysis, which is a statistical method used to identify underlying relationships between variables. So, do you know who this person was? As usual, I will reveal the identity of this person as I go along with the topic. So the first theory which we are doing is the second psychometric theory of intelligence, which is the two-factor theory of intelligence by Charles Spearman. He proposed that there is a broad general intelligence factor, which he called the G factor, and this G factor is at the base of any kind of cognitive task performance that we indulge in. So any kind of cognitive task which we are performing, the performance of that cognitive task properly depends upon this primary general factor, which is the G factor. And along with this G factor, there are certain specific factors which are related to particular tasks. So according to Spearman, every different intellectual activity involves a general factor which is shared with all other intellectual activities, which is in common, and a specific factor which is different from and has nothing in common with the other intellectual activities. So, the general factor is a core mental operation which is primary and common to all performances. So, no matter what intellectual performance we are talking about, at the base of it, at the root of it, we have this general factor. And along with this general factor, we have specific factors, which are the S factors. These are the unique abilities in respective domains that we have. So it could be the ability of singing, it could be the ability to do maths properly, or even scientific knowledge. And these abilities basically help us to excel in different domains of our life. So according to Spearman, intelligence is a combination of the general factor, which is there at the base of all our intelligence, and the specific factors which relate to different particular tasks and which are helping us to excel in various areas of our life. So all intellectual activity, according to Spearman, is dependent upon and is an expression of a general factor, which is common to all mental activity. And this factor is possessed by all individuals, but in varying degrees, which means the level of the general factor existent in different individuals will also differ. The two-factor theory therefore states that all mental activities have in common this G factor, but they can be distinguished from each other due to the presence of these specific factors. So the answer to the question of the day is Charles Spearman, the person's theory whom we just did. So Spearman was interested in pursuing academics since a very young age. However, he ended up joining the army at the age of 20 years. He remained in the army for 15 years, spending time even in India and Burma, and climbing to the rank of captain before he left everything to get a PhD in psychology. He chose to study psychology in Leipzig under Wilhelm Wundt. Now, Wilhelm Wundt was the person who set up the first formal laboratory for studying psychology in Leipzig. And Spearman went to study psychology under him, specifically because his center in Leipzig had become a kind of the center for new psychology based on the scientific method, and Spearman therefore learned under his guidance. Under his guidance, Spearman also delved into statistics and created what is called the rank correlation method in 1904. This is a way to measure how two sets of ranked data are collected. So it could be used in a situation where one only has ranked data, let us say the tally of gold medals or silver medals or bronze medals won by a set of people. And statistically, if we want to know whether people who are high ranking in sprinting are also high ranking in long distance running, then we would use this Spearman rank correlation method to find out whether there is any connection or correlation between these two sets of data. He also developed the first version of factor analysis, which is basically, again, a statistical method that helps researchers to find hidden factors that explain how different things are related. So, when different abilities are related to each other, there is one primary factor which will be there at the base of it, which is responsible for performance in all those areas. So, we owe a lot of our statistical knowledge as well as knowledge of the theory of intelligence to Spearman. Coming to the next theory of intelligence, which is the third psychometric theory of intelligence, this is given by Thurstone, and his theory is called the theory of primary mental abilities. Now, he analyzed the data from 56 different tests of mental abilities, and he tried to see the patterns of correlation among these 56 tests. From this, he identified factors which he called the primary mental abilities, which are distinct types of intelligence, which means that intelligence is not a single general factor, according to him, but a set of specific abilities. So he believed that there are certain mental operations that we have, which in common, they have in common a primary factor. And this primary factor gives them a certain functional and psychological unity and differentiates them from all other mental activities. So, there are these different groups of mental abilities. Under each group, you will have many abilities, and this group has at its base its own primary factor. So, every primary factor gives a functional and psychological unity to all the abilities which come within that primary factor. Thurstone and his associates identified 7 such factors. These factors are as follows: verbal comprehension, which is grasping the meaning of words, concepts, and ideas; numerical abilities, speed and accuracy in numerical and computational skills; spatial relations, that is, visualizing patterns and forms effectively; perceptual speed, that is, the speed in perceiving details accurately; word fluency, that is, using words fluently and flexibly; memory, accuracy in recalling information; and inductive reasoning, which is deriving general rules from presented facts. So, according to Thurstone, these 7 primary mental abilities are what constitute intelligence, according to him. And each of these primary mental abilities includes within themselves a group of abilities. The fourth psychometric theory of intelligence is the hierarchical model of intelligence given by Arthur Jensen. Now, he talks of 2 levels of intelligence. Level 1 is associative learning. Now, associative learning is a simple form of learning where the output is more or less similar to the input. Now, what does this mean? Suppose if I study certain matter and I go for an examination, and in that examination, whatever I have studied is asked in exactly the same way. So whatever I have studied, I will write it in the same manner and in the same format. So my input, that is what I have learned and what I have studied, is exactly the same as what I have written in the examination, which is my output. So all kinds of memorization tasks, all kinds of rote learning. Rote learning is learning by heart. So any kind of memorization task that we do or rote learning that we do, it comes under level 1, which is associative learning. Now, level 2 is the level of cognitive competence. And this is a higher order thinking and level where there is a change or transformation or modification of the input, and it leads to a more effective output. For example, suppose if I study the same matter and I go for the examination, but in the examination, I am not asked the same question verbatim. I am asked, you compare 3 different theories and write about which one you think is the best theory and state the reasons for that. Now, when I do that, I will have to compare the theories or whatever I have learned. I have to evaluate which one is better. I have to make a judgment of that. And then I have to write, giving the reasons why I feel this theory is better. So when I do this, whatever input, whatever I have learned is transformed or modified into an output which is very different from what I have learned, because now I have added my higher order thinking skills of evaluation, judgment, comparison, and analysis, and then I am writing my answer. So therefore, these are the two levels, according to Jensen, which constitute intelligence. So what we have learned today are the two-factor theory of intelligence by Charles Spearman, the theory of primary mental abilities by Louis Thurstone, and the hierarchical model of intelligence by Arthur Jensen. So do share, like, and subscribe to my channel, Psychology with Dipali. You can also follow me on Instagram. Until I bring the next video for you, that's all from my end today. See you very soon.